Welcome in. It is the 11 Warriors Web Report. Beau, Dan, and Zach. It is Oklahoma week, and 44, this is one of the few programs that you can look across and you can say, boy, their resume is equal to or better than ours. There aren't many of them in college football. Oklahoma's one.
There is. No, there's probably less than 10 that you can say
right.
compares with the Ohio State, the Oklahomas of the world. This is a huge matchup. Primetime football in the horseshoe. Baker Mayfield, who they're saying across college football is the best offensive player, best quarterback coming out of this class, this draft class. So what's going to happen this week? I'm really excited to see what's going to happen, and especially after Ohio State pulling away later on the second half against Indiana, you really saw what this team could do.
And Dan, this is a great quote that we had on the site this week, and everybody's kind of running with it as well. And this quote from Baker Mayfield, I'm going to quote it. "We've never been here for a team to sing their fight song on our field. Quite frankly, it's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing." He said that they dealt with it all fall camp. They dealt with it all off season. It has been their motivation. They have a new coach in Lincoln Riley. Mayfield's back. He goes 19-20 in the debut. His backup, Kyler Murray, who recruit people will remember, five-star kid, he went 10 of 11. They were as efficient as you can be, and they come in supremely motivated.
Yeah, I mean, they should be embarrassed. I mean, you're not supposed to lose by a significant margin at home when you're a team like Oklahoma, when you're a team like Ohio State. So, yeah, they're certainly going to be motivated. I'm sure that Lincoln Riley and his assistant coaches have been driving that into them as motivation going into this game. But, let's be real. Both these teams are going to be really motivated. This is a top 10 matchup. This is a matchup with serious college football playoff ramifications. And, yeah, you look at Oklahoma. They had an easier game last week than Ohio State. Ohio State had to play a Big Ten opponent. Oklahoma had UTEP. So we haven't really seen Oklahoma be tested yet, but there's a lot of talent there, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, you mentioned that. It's important to remember that Ohio State does not get to the college football playoff a year ago if they don't beat Oklahoma. Like it was a must-win game. Beating Oklahoma again this year allows for a slip-up down the road because you have it on your resume. All right, when Oklahoma has the football, it's all about Baker Mayfield, so let's start there. What does Ohio State need to do to try to corral him a little bit? You're not going to contain him entirely.
Yeah, Ohio State has to pressure him. That's the big thing, is when Baker Mayfield gets out of the pocket and feels some pressure, that's when he throws those picks. That's when he's a little wild with the ball. Almost Johnny Manziel-esque.
He's got that in him.
He does. Yeah. So Ohio State has to be able to bring different pressure, whether it be from the secondary, from the linebackers, do different stunts inside with the defensive line. They have to be able to bring pressures from all different areas and keep Baker Mayfield on his toes and not let him feel comfortable, because that's what you saw what he did against UTEP, but he was comfortable. He was in the pocket the entire time, just being able to pick on different wide receivers.
Dan, what jumps out to you when Oklahoma has the football?
I think one of the things that's going to be really interesting to watch is Mark Andrews, the tight end for Oklahoma. He had, I believe, 7 catches for about 140 yards last week, maybe the best tight end in the country. That's going to be a guy who we saw last week, the Ohio State secondary struggle a little bit with guys like Simi Cobbs, a big receiver, a big guy who maybe has a size advantage on him. That's what Oklahoma's going to have in Mark Andrews, and I'm interested to see that matchup between Mark Andrews and Ohio State secondary. We saw the pass defense put to the test last week. They're going to be put to the test again. It's going to be a different kind of a test because Oklahoma doesn't get the ball out quite as quickly as Indiana does. But in terms of weapons, in terms of a playmaker at the quarterback position and playmakers down the field, it's certainly going to be another test for that Ohio State defense.
I would use the word contain for the secondary and for the defensive line of Ohio State. For the secondary, contain in that don't let your guys break off into secondary routes and get deep and get behind you. Keep everything in front of you. And contain from the defensive end standpoint. Zach's right. Baker's a rhythm thrower, but he's also dangerous on the edge if you allow him to be. He can pick up 20 yards on the ground. He can make broken plays big. We mentioned Johnny Manziel. He's got that type of capability to him. I think you just got to contain the chaos if you're Ohio State, because their offense thrives in it. So you got to contain the chaos a little bit. That's what I'll look for. When Ohio State has the football, 44, what are you looking at?
I'm looking how they can be able to go from running the ball to throwing downfield. And I think we saw that a little bit in the second half. I feel like the way that Ohio State started the Indiana game, they would just be like, all right, we're running the ball, then we're going to pass it. And it's almost like there was no flow. They were almost working on one thing each drive, and when it wasn't working, they weren't adjusting to it. And so the way they can go from running the football to play action to throwing down the field and how they can keep that Oklahoma defense on their toes is a thing we have to look for, because that's what they did in the second half. And you saw Indiana was playing a little tighter up because they thought the run was coming. Next you know, play action, those crossing patterns, and we were able to score.
I think we go into this game with a lot of the same questions that we went into last game with, even though Ohio State scored 49 points in the season opener. And we know now that J.K. Dobbins is a special talent, that much we know. But in terms of the deep ball. That was something that was emphasized so much this offseason, and we haven't really seen it yet. They struggled to connect on that play. J.T. Barrett had one perfect throw to Paris Campbell that Paris Campbell dropped, but other than that, they just didn't seem to quite have that rhythm there on that deep ball. They didn't need it to beat Indiana, but they might need it to beat Oklahoma. So I want to see, can these receivers step up? We still haven't really seen anybody separate themselves from a pack at that position. Can they do that? And can J.T. find those downfield throws? I don't believe he completed a pass more than 15 yards in the air past the line of scrimmage in game one. Can we see a few more of those throws? Because I don't think they needed them to beat Indiana, but they might need them to beat Oklahoma.
I'm going to go two-parter here. Number one, the most important thing to me that happened in the Indiana game was Paris Campbell and also Johnny Dixon getting the plays in the second half, because those kids have talent. They've been here a long time, but they lack some confidence on the field. They both have had the dropsies. For them, having big moments was big. To me, shifting into this game, though, it's a healthy Mike Weber. And it's Weber and it's Dobbins, and it's a two-headed running attack running right at you. And Oklahoma, can you stop it? And if you can't, we're going to get in a shootout with you, because those two guys will be how this Buckeye offense, in my opinion, is built. Who wins? Do they cover?
Ohio State wins. I think Ohio State covers, and this is why. Oklahoma is young. They lost a lot of weapons. They lost D.D. Westbrook. They lost Mixon. They lost Piron on the offensive side. They played UTEP. They were not punched in the mouth. We all know it's a different story in college football when you get punched in the mouth and you kind of feel a little adversity, which Ohio State did on the road at Indiana. So Ohio State's been there. It's been punched in the mouth this year. Oklahoma is not. Ohio State will cover.
I'm going to go with no cover on this one. It wouldn't shock me if Ohio State won by a significant margin. We saw what happened last year. Like Zach said, they have been punched in the mouth. They've had that first game, and I do think they'll win this game, but I'm going to say this one's within a touchdown for a final score. I think Oklahoma's a really good team. I think we saw Ohio State face some adversity early in last week's game against Indiana, and I think Oklahoma's a more talented team. So I'm going to say Ohio State wins, but by less than 7 points.
You know, it's hard for me to get past. Ohio State goes in there a year ago and just whips them. And I think Ohio State's better this year, and I think Oklahoma's maybe a little bit worse than they were a year ago, and it's at the shoe. So you say to yourself, okay, we win by 21 in Norman, then certainly we're going to win by 21 or better here. But college football is a weird thing.
Yes,
and this thing started at 9.5. It's been bet down to 7.5 right now. Maybe there's something a little more to see there. I don't think it'll be a cover. I do think Ohio State will win. I think they win by a touchdown or less. So I would say at this point, at the time of this taping, no cover, Buckeyes win, but I think you're in for a classic, and I think we can all agree there's nothing better in college football than a Saturday night at the Shoe. You enjoy yours this weekend.